Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about meiosis compared to mitosis. So mitosis dealt with the reproduction of most of your body cells, while meiosis is looking at specifically one type of cell in your body, your gametes or your sex cells. So your sperm cells in males and the egg cell in the female. And as you can see in the summary, it's a much more complicated process than mitosis was. Organisms can reproduce through two different means. You have asexual reproduction, which is basically cloning, where it's obviously only one parent, so there's no sex involved, and that's one organism just splitting into two identical copies. So asexual reproduction is obviously much easier than sexual reproduction, but since it's cloning, you don't have as much variation. While sexual reproduction obviously requires two parents to combine their DNA and to create that one new organism. So while sexual reproduction takes more energy and has more effort involved, the benefits to the genetic diversity of the species is much greater than through asexual reproduction. Within your cells, you have two sets of chromosomes. You have one set that obviously comes from mom, and you have one set that comes from dad. When an organism has two sets of chromosomes, we call those organisms diploid. So diploid means you have two sets. Another way to represent that is through the use of 2n, where n represents the sets of chromosomes. So 2n means that you're diploid and you have two sets. So within our body cells, like our brain, our liver, our skin, all the basic cells in our body are diploid, where one set comes from mom, one set comes from dad, they combine and form you. Body cells have a fancier science name, though, called somatic cells. So somatic cells basically mean the non-sex cells. So the non-sperm, the non-egg are called somatic cells. And all of your body cells are diploid. So they all have two sets of chromosomes. And as you can see down here, you have all these chromosomes, and they have pairing of these chromosomes. So you can see clearly you have two sets of each chromosome. Your gametes, however, only have 23 individual chromosomes. So we call these gametes, your sex cells, your sperm and your egg, they are haploid. So diploid meant that you had two sets of chromosomes, 2n. Haploid means that you only have one set of chromosomes, which makes perfect sense, because if your body cells are 2n, have two sets, then if you're combining your sex cell with another person's sex cell, well, one set plus one set gives you the two-set human. So you need your gametes to be haploid, so when the two haploid cells combined, they create a diploid human. So when the sperm and egg combine, they create that diploid baby. So meiosis is the actual process of how do you take a cell that's diploid naturally and actually create haploid cells from it. So meiosis is the process of creating gametes, creating sex cells that are haploid in nature, that only have one set of each of those chromosomes. Within our body, this is a number I do expect you should know that there's 46 total chromosomes. However, these 46 chromosomes are actually arranged in 23 pairs. So you have 23 pairs of chromosomes. These pairs are called homologous pairs because they're the same size chromosome. Homologous means same size. So the chromosomes are arranged in these pairs, in these homologous pairs, where they're the same size. And each one of these pairs comes from each of your parent. So if you look at this pair up here that's circled, one of them came from mom, and then the other one came from dad. So you have 23 sets of chromosomes. Within each homologous pair of chromosomes, one came from your mother, one came from your father, for a total of 46 in humans, but that number changes depending on the organism. So other organisms, I think frogs have 72 chromosomes. Only one pair actually differs, and that's your sex chromosomes, your 23rd pair. You should also know that if you have two X chromosomes, you're a female, and if you have one X and Y chromosome, that makes you a male. One key thing about meiosis, and students usually forget this, is that this meiosis is the M phase of these cells that become your gametes. So therefore, before meiosis happens, just like before mitosis happens, you still have that interphase. You still have that S phase to replicate your DNA. Because if you didn't replicate your DNA, then the cell would not turn out properly. So interphase still occurs during meiosis, just like interphase still occurred during mitosis. And meiosis is double the fun of mitosis. There's actually two stages. You have meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. And you can see here the entire steps of meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. Whoops, sorry. And so there's two divisions. You have meiosis 1, mitotic division 1, and mitotic division 2. The entire point of meiosis 1, so this is meiosis 1, the entire point of meiosis 1 is reduction division. So in meiosis 1, the entire point of this entire first division is to go from that 2N diploid cell to that 1N haploid cell. That's the entire point of this first stage, is to go from 2N to 1N. As you can see, you start out with 2 chromosomes up here, this homologous pair, and only one of them end up in each of the new cells. Meiosis 2 is known as mitotic division, because mitosis 2 is actually just mitosis. Sorry, meiosis 2 is just mitosis. That's all this stuff down here is. So there's nothing different between meiosis 2 and mitosis. The only new information is in meiosis 1. So pretty much meiosis 1 and mitosis are very similar. So these slides through meiosis 1 more go through the differences that happen between meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. So meiosis 1 has prophase 1, metaphase 1, anaphase 1, telophase 1. So the majority of the stuff that happens during meiosis 1 is very, very similar to mitosis. So I'm just going to highlight the differences. So one of the big differences in prophase 1 that never happens during prophase of mitosis is that the chromosomes actually pair up. So in prophase 1, those homologous pairs actually form. So the chromosome number 1 you got from mom finds and pairs up with the chromosome number 1 you got from dad. So that's one of the big differences about prophase 1 compared to mitosis, is that in prophase 1, homologous pairs actually pair up. This never occurs during mitosis, ever. In metaphase 1, instead of lining up single file down the line, in metaphase 1, the homologous pairs actually line up. So they line up double file. In anaphase 1, instead of separating the individual chromatids from each other, so instead of ripping apart that one chromosome, you're actually separating the homologous pairs. So you're separating the individual pairs. So one entire chromosome will go left, one entire chromosome will go right. And then telophase 1 in cytokinesis basically is the exact same as mitosis. So you still have this cleavage forming. You still have 2 new nuclei starting to reform. But one of the big differences at this point, each chromosome still has 2 sister chromatids, and these are now haploid cells. So you started out with 2 sets of chromosomes at the beginning. Now you end up with only 1 set of chromosomes in each of the new cells. And then each of those 2 new cells then enter meiosis 2, which is mitotic division, which I'm not going to go through because literally prophase 2, metaphase 2, anaphase 2, telophase 2, cytokinesis 2 is exactly the same as what you learned about mitosis. So meiosis 2 is exactly the same process of mitosis. So prophase 2, metaphase 2, anaphase 2, telophase 2 is exactly the same as what you learned from mitosis. And because you have 2 cells that are entering through meiosis, you end up with 4 total. So if we quickly go back, if you look at this slide again, meiosis 1 is all about going from a diploid cell into 2 haploid cells. So this is prophase 1, metaphase 1, anaphase 1, telophase 1, cytokinesis 1. Now you create 2 new cells. So each of these are now haploid 1N. These 2 new cells then go through meiosis 2 individually, which is prophase 2, metaphase 2, anaphase 2, telophase 2, which is exactly the same as PMAT from mitosis. And then at the end, each of these cells divide, and you end up with 4 haploid cells. Each one of these cells has only 1 set of chromosomes. And that is the entire point of meiosis, to go from a diploid cell and to create 4 haploid cells from that.